Okay. And first of all, your title, name, surname, and position.
So my name is Lawrence Tallis, and I'm creative director at Copa90. We're the leading independent football network based out of London.
And author of this report.
Yes.
This movie, or what is it going to be?
Yeah, so actually the purpose of our trip is twofold. So the first is actually just a fact-finding and also a kind of contact-making trip to Russia ahead of the World Cup and ahead of the Confederations Cup. We, unlike some other organisations, wanted to come and see things for ourselves and start meeting people and start finding out what the football landscape is like before the World Cup.
How long are you now in Russia? What countries have you visited already? What kind of people have you already talked to?
So we arrived in Moscow on Tuesday night, and we spent the last 3 days in Moscow before coming to St. Petersburg this morning. And we've been speaking to a really nice wide range of people. So we've been speaking to anti-racism campaigners, we spoke to a few hooligans as well, we spoke to some creatives, we spoke to Gosha Rubchinsky. So we're really trying to find out about not just the football landscape, but also the creative landscape and how people are working with football and how football is kind of inspiring creativity in Russia as well.
What parts of your future documentary will be about Russian fans?
So as an organisation, our whole focus is usually on the fans, but actually the purpose of this trip was in some ways to address some of the fears that people had about the World Cup, but we had no idea that the BBC film was going to be coming out, and it just happened to come out whilst we were here. So inevitably the focus has changed a little bit to at least address some of the frustrations that we see Russian people having with the way that the subject was tackled on the BBC.
About BBC a little later, but now about your impression of Russian fans movement. How many fans do you meet already, and maybe write your interviews to them? How can you describe your impression about this movement? Not only hooligans, but are they only hooligans?
Sure. So I should say first of all that we only met a couple of people who identified as hooligans, and we're meeting more ultras and more normal supporters over the last few days and over the coming days. Certainly the impression that we get, although obviously we've come out of season and we've only been here a few days and it's a country of 150 million people, but our impression is very much that the small hooligan minority, that it is a small hooligan minority, and that
Almost.
So our impression is that it's a small hooligan minority, and that actually they're a source of massive frustration for regular fans. And actually we've met a lot of people who are looking forward to the World Cup as a chance to actually dispel the reputation of Russian fans as being violent and to show that there's a lot more to Russian football than just these small hooligan groups.
Is this really so very interesting topic to discuss in England? That BBC make a huge documentary about fans.
Well, apparently so, and I think it's often the case with larger media organisations that don't necessarily have a position in football. We pride ourselves on being not just the voice of the fans, but also allowing fans to tell their own stories. And through doing that, we've kind of built a level of trust in the football community that's kind of unparalleled. Whereas the approach in the BBC documentary is very much from an external filmmaker's perspective, and not really about trying to paint an honest picture, but to take maybe one element of what he found and making that into a sensational story. So I think things like that are going to always provoke media headlines in whatever country they happen in, especially if you can find someone to say the sorts of things that they managed to find them to say. But our purpose is to try and show that that's not the only story around the Russian World Cup.
Do you know about feedback in social media in Great Britain or in Russia to this movie?
Actually, no, but it's something that I've become aware of on this trip. So we're learning that there's not a lot of people on Facebook in Russia, or at least not as many, and that feedback is much bigger. But that's part of the reason for coming, is to find out the differences in media consumption in Russia as well.
Will you describe this problem about Russian minority hooligans and fans movements in your documentary, in your website?
As in, will we address it? Will we address that problem? Yes, we will do, but actually now with much more of a focus on whether some of the claims made in that documentary are true. So this idea that there will be this festival of violence at the World Cup, really what we want to do is ask whether that's a legitimate fear, whether that's a justified fear, or actually whether when it comes to it the authorities will be able to clamp down. And certainly the impression that we've been given and what everyone is saying to us is that the problem is not easily controlled, but the policing will be such that it won't be an issue, and that the percentage of fans who want to engage in that sort of violence is not that significant anyway.
Well, let's remember that picture from the past European Cup in France. You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Have you met here in Russia as British some aggressive Russians to your group?
To us personally, no, absolutely not. Nothing at all. Everyone that we've met, obviously we've been in touch before we come, but everyone we met has been incredibly welcoming, incredibly friendly, as you would expect. And it's an important point actually, because part of our kind of mission as an organisation is to show that football is a great way for bringing people together, for opening you up to other cultures around the world, and that's why we kind of felt strongly about this issue to do with the World Cup, because we believe the World Cup is the kind of best example of this, or the best opportunity to do this, and certainly so far that's proved the case in Russia, as it does wherever we go in the world, which is that if you have one common bond to get you started, then you're inevitably going to open up conversations with people from everywhere.
Maybe remembering those pictures, did you expect some aggressive?
Personally, no, I didn't. But I think for people that maybe don't visit football tournaments or don't go around the world watching football, then it's easy to see those pictures in the context that they're shown and imagine that not just that particular incident, but football generally, or particularly Russian football, is an incredibly violent atmosphere, because, as we all know, media images can paint a certain picture, and that's also not to downplay the severity of what actually happened in Marseille, which was undoubtedly incredibly violent and incredibly wrong. But again, I think it's important to stress that it was a small, even albeit significant, number of people that did it, and that there were problems with the policing that probably allowed that situation to happen in the way that it did.
So, Lawrence, how you think could the British spectators believe to this message and afraid to go to Russia to the World Cup?
I think people absolutely will be for the time being. We've certainly had messages from people whilst we've been out there saying, "Oh my God, watch out! I hope be careful." But part of our mission is certainly, once we've found out a little bit more, to hopefully be able to show people that might not be justified, and that they don't need to be worried about coming to Russia for the World Cup.
Will you say to your spectators that in Russia is normal safety? Or don't you think it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's important to say that we're not security experts or police experts or anything of that nature, but maybe not as an official message, but we certainly won't be saying that they should be scared to come and that there will be a guaranteed festival of violence, because right now we don't think that's true.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you in Russia.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
It's not scary, you see.